In 2022, my one goal is to work smarter, not harder. So, rather than talk about books that I could not stand this year, and let's be honest, I've unhauled pretty much all of these already, I'm going to let you know what my worst books of 2021 were by showing you my Rant reviews from the year. We're recycling content, so you will, if you watch any of my wrap-ups, any of my potluck wrap-ups, you will have seen these clips already. But you may have forgotten just how much I fucking hated these books. So enjoy these clips of me getting irate about things that are completely arbitrary. And I'm sorry if you liked any of these books, but they can get in the sea.
And then the other one that I pulled out by accident is Mercy, which I did not enjoy. This is a graphic novel about an alien monster that is discovered in the centre of the earth by accident somehow, I think, who then comes back and just starts eating people. But it's a hot mess. The storyline is all over the place. I'm so disappointed because I was so excited by the front cover. And actually, when I got about halfway through reading, I realised that it was Mirka Andolfo's, and I've read Andolfo's before and really not liked them. So if I'd known that going in, which is stupid because I should have just looked, but really I got caught up in the pretty face. I got caught up in the fact that it's an Image graphic novel, and usually Image are just the one for me. Oh, it was just awful. The pacing was all over the place. The plot didn't make any fucking sense. Characters were suddenly monsters and then they weren't again. And there's this one little character who's like this really cute little brunette girl who's like adopted by the monster basically, who sees her mum in the alien and therefore thinks that this woman can do no wrong, even though she's literally seen her like kill people. She's just like, oh well, I guess they were bad guys. Like, it just doesn't make any fucking sense. And the fact that it is literally volume 1, but it feels like it's like volume 3. There was just so much in there. I was just like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know where I am. It just wasn't good. It wasn't good. And I was really disappointed because I'm getting really into graphic novels, but this was just not it. And it's so pretty. It had so much potential and it was not good. Oh, it is a March read and it is Spellslinger. So Spellslinger is by Sebastian de Castell. It is a YA fantasy about a young man called Kellen who basically wants to tap into his powers. There's some dark, evil forces coming for him and his family, blah, 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 blah. This is such a paint-by-numbers YA fantasy that I lost the will to live about halfway through it. I did finish it because I was listening to it as an audiobook. This was one of the books that I read during my vlog of picks that Emma Novella picked for me, and the more they reflect on it, the less they like Spellslinger. So I don't know if it's just my negativity ruining Spellslinger for them, but I just didn't like it. And I feel really bad because this was gifted to me by Blanche, and I love a gifted book, so I really appreciate that, Blanche, but it just really wasn't for me. Now, I have put the next book in the series in my wish list, on my Amazon wish list, because to be honest, I don't know if I can be bothered to commit to this. Now, I'm not saying it was so bad that it was awful. It was just incredibly vanilla as fantasies go. Spoilers for certain plot twists. Turns out this kid that's not had any power the entire time has the most badass power out of all of them. No one saw that one coming. Oh, and the uncle, as always, is the antagonist. So it just felt really bland to me. There was one thing in particular that I feel like it kind of peed on the parade before it even really got going. There are several female characters in this which are badass. There is Kellen's mother, who is a healer and really well respected. There is Fenris. Is it Fenris or Ferris? I think it's Ferris. Let's remember how to say her name. Oh, I don't even care enough to find it. There's a woman who's basically this like cowboy type woman who is just a badass and kind of saves Kellen. 80% of the book is just her saving him. And there is the young girl that Kellen is in love with. Kellen is so misogynistic that he is rude to just exclusively those 3 people. He doesn't tell anyone else in this book to shut up. but he tells those 3 women at some point, I don't think he says it to his mum, but he definitely says it to Ferris and to the girl that he's in love with. He tells them to shut up, he completely disregards their ideas, he spends so much of his time just talking about how beautiful they are, rather than actually appreciating that they have saved his butt several times. And for me, it just got really problematic, and it was just, it's one of those things where, like, I'm sure years ago I wouldn't have noticed and I wouldn't have cared, but I have read so many fantastic novels with female protagonists who are actually worth their weight in gold, and for him to just completely treat those characters as shit, it just didn't sit right with me. So the fact that he is the most beige, nice guy type character, you know, even his sister is this really powerful wizard, witch, whatever it is they call themselves. He treats her like shit. Now I know that there's like a sibling rivalry between the 2 of them. She is incredibly competitive. She is kind of put up as like his rival right from the off, and she's not very nice to him either. But I just thought it was really interesting that all of the female characters get treated like dog shit and all of the male characters get to be the heroes at the end. That bothered me, and I have recently DNF'd Traitor's Blade for similar reasons. So I ended up giving this 2 stars. It was either 3 or 2 stars, in the fact that it was just fine, but there was just not enough there to grab my attention. So the only way I will read the next one in the series is if someone else pays for it, because it just wasn't the one. Really disappointing in general with that one. We'll keep going. So next one is going to be hopefully a bit more cheery. It's not going to be more cheery, because it's going to be The Invisible Life of Addy LaRue. Now if you love this book, I want you to just skip. I just want you to skip straight ahead to whichever book is up next. I want you to ignore everything that I have to say about this book, because you're not my target audience here. But if you're someone that's like, oh, I think I'm going to like it, maybe stick around. And if you're someone that's like, is it just me, or is V.E. Schwab a poor man's Laini Taylor? Welcome to my TED Talk. I've decided, off the back of this and another one that's in here that I might just review next, just so I can get it out of the way, that V.E. Schwab is not the author for me. A booktube darling, an icon, a wonderful human being, I'm sure. However, there was so much in this that could have been better. So let's start with context, okay? I buddy read this in August with Olivia from over at Olivia's Catastrophe, my Gothtober co-host queen, my bestie. Like, I love her. So when she said I thought, sure, why not? Now we both decided to read it alongside the audiobook on Scribd, which meant we could do the chunky one as a buddy read, because last time we tried to do a buddy read it was a really short read and I didn't keep up, but I was able to keep up with this one, and we had lots of thoughts. A lot of it could be summarised into there's just not enough of any one thing. So the premise is obviously that Addy, for whatever reason, doesn't want to die and decides that she's going to make a deal with the devil and live forever. The only problem being, because she's beholden to no one remembers who she is. Interesting concept, right up until she meets someone who does remember who she is. Now, the first 100 pages don't have Henry in, I don't think, or if they do, it's only like a glimpse of him. She then like falls, this is where we get into spoiler territory, and I have to spoil it because I have to explain why I don't like it. So she meets this guy who can remember her, and you find out later it's because both of them have sold their soul to the devil. Both of them have done like it in a slightly different way, but basically both of their curses counteract each other. And the whole time they think, oh, well, we've got one up on the devil. We've managed to like outsmart him or whatever. No, you haven't. No, you haven't. Like, and it was so obvious from the start that they hadn't. Like, what a coincidence that she just happens to stumble across him over literally billions of people. Like, she meets loads of people, and I appreciate that, like, V.E. Schwab has come under a lot of fire because of the really bad lack of representation in this book. There's loads of LGBTQ, there is one BIPOC character, because that's how humanity works. Just know that I noticed. But she meets a myriad of different people, loads of famous people for absolutely no fucking reason, by the way. She just like stumbles across them. I'm supposed to believe that she stumbles across this one other dude that's had a curse, when the only other people she's been introduced to that have been cursed, she's been introduced to by the devil. He showed her. He takes her to see Beethoven and shows her what ripping a soul from someone looks like, right? And then she just like stumbles across this other person that happens to be cursed by the devil and doesn't think, what a weird coincidence that the only other time I've met someone who is cursed was literally by the devil's hands. Not like this would be one of those instances. Of course not. So they spend the rest of the book thinking they've outsmarted him. And then like there was like a little plot twist at the end where like, ooh, maybe she did outsmart him. No. No, the reason this has such an ambiguous ending is so that you can believe for one split second that maybe she outsmarted the devil. She didn't. She didn't. I'm telling you for nothing she didn't. He's the devil. He's been doing this since the dawn of time. Like, no. Okay, so Addy annoyed me because there were so many instances where I was like, you could have used this power for so many really fucking cool things, right? Like, if you draw something and it doesn't leave a mark, that doesn't mean you can't perfect the skill, right? Like, you can still work on something. If you're working on it and you're touching it, it's only when she like lets go that it fades away. If she's able to learn how to play musical instruments and then teach someone else a song, there is absolutely ways she could have got around doing anything like that, right? Like there were so many things that you're like, you get like hints of these rule breaks and then they're just not used. Like it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like I just felt like everything needed to be pushed just a little bit more. It was so tame. I've used the phrase before, pedestrian. This felt really pedestrian. Even like the devil wasn't that insidious. Like he obviously has this like weird crush on Addy. I don't know why, Addy specifically, but he clearly has this like crush on Addy. So he like pursues her and he's like romantic, and then he's like split personality all of a sudden, like mean, and like causing like it's such a weird gaslighty relationship. And it is abusive. It's an abusive relationship she's in, but it's still like not pushed to the point where like, I mean it obviously isn't being pushed to the point because people aren't like, oh he's a bad dude, like you should stay away from him, like as an audience. People have been like, oh he's like hella sexy. No he isn't. How is he sexy? Like I don't understand why the internet loves this book so much. I can't stand it, and I was so disappointed because I really wanted to have a nice buddy read with my friend, and it was boring. It was so boring, and like just the stuff that did happen, it all just happened like I just needed more. Maybe I needed more violence, maybe I needed more sexual chemistry, maybe I needed Henry to be slightly more interesting. Henry's curse is because he got dumped. Like what a middle class white man problem to have. Like Addy is literally being forced into a marriage. I can understand that. Part of me is like, okay, but arranged marriages was such a systematic thing. Would she have had a problem with that? A modern audience, for sure. But like, there's so much that's embedded in history. Would it have been an issue for her? If her parents seemed happy enough and were in an arranged marriage, why would she feel any differently? But Henry got dumped and had like his parents be mean to him or like rude to him and decided that that was worth selling his soul for. Like I just don't understand. And like I can completely understand like wanting to have that representation of depression and wanting to have that representation of like mental health, except depression from my experience isolates you way before you ever get to that point. He never feels isolated. He acknowledges that he has both B and what's his mate, the guy that's like really rude to everyone, the actor. He has them. He knows he has them, and he's disappointed that one of them loved him and doesn't anymore, and one of them just loves him as a friend, and he's not happy with that. People are literally dying every day, like, get over it. It's so frustrating, and I feel like there should be something authentic in this, and I just didn't believe it, and it just completely took me out of it, because the moment I found out it was because he got dumped, I was just like, well, I don't care. Like, so, and also, I'd like to point out, this is a gripe of mine in general in literature, okay? Why is it that the moment, like, something in literature or a film or a TV series has the devil selling souls, immediately all of those souls are really well-known people? Because it completely negates any of the time and patience and skill that has gone into developing their fame. And it's completely retconned for, but the devil did it. Like, it makes me so angry. Because, like, I think the reason I find it frustrating is probably it's my own problem, right? Like, I work really fucking hard to be good at what I'm good at. I don't want someone to, like, rewrite my history and be like, oh, well, you know, but she sold her soul to the devil and that's the real reason. Like, she didn't really work for it. It just happened. Like, I just find it as a trope really annoying. And that's what this book is essentially like, here's a list of people that you thought were really cool, but actually, no, the devil did it. And my friend Sean, who thinks that I have a real fascination with the devil in general, is probably going to be quite pleased that I'm so anti this book. I just thought it was really boring, and I've talked about it for, like, forever. So now that I've said my piece, we'll just move on. We'll just move on. But I'm really sorry if it's like one of your 2021 faves, because I just thought it was a bit shit. Are you the one? Are you the one? Are you the one? No. Right, where's Caraval? Where's Caraval? Okay, I don't know where I've put Caraval now either. Okay, Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I did this as an audiobook over the weekend. I was pleasantly surprised by this. It's a YA about a young girl who is being abused physically, emotionally and mentally by her dad, who basically just tortures her into doing exactly what he wants. Now, again, I need to discuss a spoiler with you, so if you haven't read Caraval yet, skip on to the next one, because again, we're going to be here a while. Throughout the whole thing, she's trying to find her sister. She's picking up these little clues, she's having little adventures, she's learning to be a badass. In the meantime, she's kind of very reluctant to be there. She is very much the, what's the phrase when it's the journey that he doesn't want to be on? Like a reluctant journey type thing. Anyway, so she doesn't want to be there. The whole time she's learning to be brave, etc. And then at the very end, she loses her sister, and it is through this wish that she brings her sister back, and she learns that, you know, their love is the strongest and no one will ever love her sister like she does, and everything is wonderful, until you realise that her sister planned the entire thing. So it's one of those things where, like, I feel like I need to reread it to go back through and be like, wow, your sister's a dick, because really, what was the point? What was the fucking point? You know, she faked her death so that her dad would stop looking for them and would leave them alone and they could go out and live their lives. I get that. There must have been so many easier ways on a tiny island that your father is the sole controller of that you could have done that. So many ways to do that. I believe that's gaslighting. I'm pretty sure that's gaslighting. I don't have any medical degrees or degrees in psychology or anything like that, so please don't hold me to that, but it feels like if you're persuading someone to think a certain way and bend to your way of perception. So yeah, great storyline, really, really fun, loved all the magic, loved all the whimsy. Can't get over that though. That was something teenager Hannah wouldn't have noticed, but adult Hannah did, so we'll just move on. Pulled out alongside it by accident was The Last Day. Oh, this was fucking Pedestrian. Right, okay, so I can, like, really lean into how much I didn't enjoy this, because I don't think I'm going to offend anyone. I'm certainly not going to tag Andrew Hunter Murray in this, but I am going to give you a little bit of backstory in why, again, I was so disappointed with this. So, Andrew Hunter Murray is, I think his background is either in literature or science or a mixture of the two. But essentially, he is one of the QI elves. He has a podcast that says there's no, like, that's called like No Such Things as Fish, which is really great. And more importantly, to me anyway, he is one of the lead actors in Ostentatious, which is a comedy improvisation play where they basically, the audience gives the performers different Austen titles, and they're all parodies of Austen novels, or just random titles, and then they just make them up as they go along, and it's really genuinely very funny, and he is a very funny, intelligent man. And when I found out that this was going to be his debut novel, I pre-ordered it like the moment I heard, because I was so excited. It's so pedestrian, like, it's so commercial. Everything that your dad could want in a book is in this, and that was so disappointing. The premise of this is really cool. The world has stopped spinning. So one side of the planet is plunged into darkness and the other side is just in perpetual sunlight. And there are only a few habitable places left. Now the main character lives on an oil rig and she is tracking the water flow system and how cold water and warm water are mixing to create new ecosystems, which is a really interesting concept. Except she only spends the first 2 chapters on the oil rig before she goes to London, because apparently England is in that slither of countryside which survived. That tiny, tiny little island survived, where massive continents didn't, which was my first issue with this. I get it, you know, it's written by a British man. Right, what you know, I get that, but I feel like they could have done anything else. The diversity in this is pretty piss poor. I don't remember there being any characters of colour. I don't remember there being any LGBTQ characters either, so that was pretty abysmal. There is one Russian/Romanian woman, I think. That's about it. And the plot twist was interesting, but I was bored by that point. It's a lot of the main character rocking up to places looking for clues, getting conked on the head, waking up somewhere else, finding out either her ex-husband or her brother has bailed her out of the situation, her relationship with her brother breaking down, and her relationship with her ex-husband building back up. And it was just, everything about it was so predictable and just so pedestrian. It's just the one word that I keep coming back to, because it just feels like, what was the fucking point? What was the point? Like, it feels like a dad beach read. So I gave it 3 stars, because it's not bad writing. I just didn't care about any of the things happening. I didn't care about the characters. Like, there's a bit where these, like, savage men attack them, who've, like, kind of gone wild in the dark and stuff like that. But that only lasts a chapter, and it's really, really hard, because when you've got a totalitarian dystopia, you're going to make comparisons to, like, V for Vendetta or 1984 or even The Hunger Games. And this didn't go to the extremes enough to be related to those. It just felt like Britain today, but with even more police brutality. And it was just a bit shit. So this was the one that I was like, I'm just getting rid of it. I'm not even going to necessarily unhaul it to someone that I know, because I don't think they'll enjoy it. I don't think they'll care. And I'll be taking it down from Waypoint Books as well, because I just don't think it's worth putting your money behind. So yeah, 3 stars, but borderline 2. It's that side of the 3 stars. Alright, let's move on to one that hopefully will be more positive than that, because it's just boring. Next, we have Denim Vipers. Okay, this is where I lose all of my time and I don't get to talk about anything else. Denim Vipers, what the fuck was that? Now, I know that people are really into mafia romances at the moment, and I get that Amazon romances are a real thing at the moment. People are really getting into, like, the Kindle Unlimited stuff. Fine, I get that. I picked it up because we were doing organised crime as part of one of the prompts for one of the book clubs that I'm in. Great. I was going to read a literary fiction thriller about a Pakistani mob boss that has to take over from her father, basically. That was going to be really interesting to me. Didn't get a chance to read that, but the buddy read we all agreed on, apparently, was Denim Vipers, and I feel like it was my fault. It probably was my fault. I'm also pretty sure that out of the 4 of us that were buddy reading it, only 2 of us finished it. I feel like one gave it a good go and one just didn't bother at all, which is fair enough. Now, here's my main issue with this story. There's nothing in it. It's 600 pages when it easily could have been 300. The sex scenes were fine. Like, you know, if you're into erotica, they're fine. They do get a bit twisted and gory. At one point, she's literally being fucked in the arse by a knife. Each to their own. My issue is the other 300 pages that's just waffle, that's just narrative that doesn't need to be there. You've got this whole storyline about how she doesn't want to be there and she fights being there, and then she, like, immediately settles into their world, and they're all like, we're corrupting this innocent. She's not fucking innocent. She's literally, like, kicked the shit out of several people already. Like, she's as bad as they are. Fine, I like the equal footing of that. And then they have to bring this whole thing about her dad back in at the end, almost like the author went, oh yeah, that's how they got together in the first place, was her dad sold them to him, so we need to bring the dad back. Why? No one gave a shit about him for 500 pages. No one gave a shit about him, and then he comes back at the end like he's the ultimate ultimate boss battle. I just didn't care, and it was boring. Like, you get to, they have like their massive orgy, right, by page 400, and you're like, I've got another 200 pages of this? really? I just don't care anymore. Like, we've done it. We've got there. We've arrived. I don't need any more of this. Like, it just kept going. It was so boring. And I was just like, why are people so obsessed with this book? And I get that obviously it's the controversy, right? Like, it's the fact that, you know, they're having knife play and she's in a dungeon and like they've kidnapped her and shit like that. Like, I get that. I get that that is interesting. I suppose if you don't do anything else with your day, I don't know. I'm like, and it's not even like a kink shame thing, right? Because I don't care. I don't care what you get up to. I don't care what you're into. But if you're going to write an erotica, like, I've got to be interested in it. Like, weirdly, there was too much narrative, but I didn't care about the narrative at all. And if it hadn't had the sex in it, I probably would have DNF'd it. That's almost what saved it. That and the fact that I was listening to an audiobook. And the audiobook. Why are they Cockney in the audiobook? Why are they Cockney? Why are they all South East London geezers? Why? It was awful. And I've shown that audiobook to so many people because it's just bad. It's just, I can't, you know what? I know I've got 5 minutes to go. I've wasted 4 minutes on this one book. I knew I would. I'll have to. Right, well, let me put it to a speed you'll actually be able to hear it, because I've got a 2-point speed for the moment.
You can do better than that, little bird, I murmur before biting down on her bottom lip. She groans and slaps me. The sound is loud in the room as my head whips to the side. My eyes wild, chest heaving and cock hard, I slowly...
And on that note, like, it's just not good. It's just, like, it's made worse by the audiobook. I'm sure if I had actually read it as a paperback, it wouldn't have been so bad. But I'm terrible for keeping up with buddy reads, so if I get the opportunity to do it as an audiobook, I will. But that one was so upsetting. I'm upset. Anyway, let's talk about something else. The next book is going to be For the Wolf. Okay, now this is one of those books that did not understand the assignment. I was promised a Red Riding Hood retelling that was going to be gothic, that was going to be dark, was going to be sexy, it was going to be like angsty YA, and it was none of those things. I don't know who told writers that if you talk about blood a lot, that's enough to make it dark and spooky. It isn't. There is absolutely no tension built up in this book whatsoever, sexual or otherwise. The main character, Eamon, is just kind of like, is in like the main love interest, Eamon, is just kind of sad all the time, and I don't find that sexy. I don't find sadness sexy. I don't know if that's a hot take, but it just wasn't it for me. The one redeeming element of this that did keep me reading was that there are 2 sisters in this. And basically the first daughter is for the throne and the second daughter is for the wolf, and the wolf is essentially this mystical creature that lives within the woods, that has captured kings or gods or whatever, and basically the daughters are a sacrifice to him. Except you learn pretty much straight away that that is not entirely true. The myth has been reinterpreted in a way that isn't helpful, that the wolf is trying to save the wood and the wood is trying to absorb power to keep itself alive, to keep these like horrible demons at bay. And you learn that like pretty much straight away. Like, she goes into the woods and turns out, oh, I'm actually not stuck here. And from that moment it kind of lost its Red Riding Hood element and very much became a Beauty and the Beast retelling, in that you have this beautiful girl who falls in love with the monster, except he's not a monster, he's like actually quite a nice guy, and he's a total soft boy. He's a total soft boy. He's not even a himbo because he's not stupid, he just, you know, deals with things very much on his own. And I just really didn't like that. But the other perspective of the sister that is going for the throne is really dark, it's really mysterious, and it sets up a really interesting premise for the second book, and it very much feels like a villain origin story. So I really liked that bit, but it was not enough to redeem it enough for me to actually read the next book. I'm not interested. I was really disappointed. It just felt like every other word was either moss or blood, and it just... when you get to the point where you're like, okay, I don't care, enough of the description, like, let's move on with the story, and then the story isn't going anywhere either, that was really hard. Overall it was a massive disappointment, and I think it's even bigger disappointment because it's off the back of being another pre-order that I was really excited for that then just fell completely flat for me. So yeah, if you liked Addy LaRue, give it a go. Was The Lights of Prague. This is one of the ones that I was nervous about because I could see it still sitting in my pile. I read this a few months ago, and I did this as a buddy read with Hannah from Bookworm's Feast on Instagram and Lizzie as Elf, Lizzie from BookTube, and I just didn't like it. I thought it was going to be a really fun look at vampirism and looking at like Victorian vampirism, slightly different themes, different country, foreign setting, but the writing style was so boring. And I know that for Hannah and Lizzie, the way the Wisp works, which is like this like magical creature that kind of starts the whole narrative off, redeemed it for them at the end. Didn't redeem it for me. I thought it was so boring. I was so disappointed, and I'm really sorry to Lizzie and Hannah that I picked such a boring book for us to buddy read because it was so pants. Oh god. It's such a shame because I like vampires and I like historical fiction, but the main character was just such a drip, and because the other characters were so much more interesting, spending so much time with him became a chore, and I just didn't want to read it. And I'm not gonna lie, if it hadn't been for that we were buddy reading it, I probably would have DNF'd pretty early on. It was just boring. It was so boring. So again, if you liked Addy LaRue, give it a go. Thinking about it only makes it worse. Again, this is even more anticlimactic. I was thinking about this as I piled it up. I don't remember anything from this book. This is what an anticlimactic ending. After all those amazing reads, what an anticlimactic ending. So Thinking About It Only Makes It Worse is essentially a collection of articles that David Mitchell has written for whichever newspaper it is that he works for. I think it's The Guardian. And then Faber published them. But essentially, because it's a bunch of essays, it's on a whole bunch of different things that were all they weren't his opinion, because he's not giving enough of his opinion for anyone to be mad at him. It's just kind of like a comical commentary. The fact that I don't remember anything about what he actually said, I think goes to show how much I don't care about this book. Like, I gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed it. I know that it made me laugh. I know that there were things that had me being thoughtful. I know there are things that I went and then talked to my family about. But as far as what's in it, couldn't tell you. So that's disappointing. Again, I'm sorry if you liked these books, but I'm also not sorry. I've unhauled all of these copies. He's behind the pillow. You can't even see him. What you doing, Psycho? I hope you've enjoyed this video. Make sure to check out all the links below. Treat yourself to something from Waypoint this week. And other than that, have a nice day. Or don't.